Think a Jefferson nickel can't make you rich? Think again. We've all heard the rumors of $1 million nickel, but the real story is even better. While your pocket change is full of 5-cent coins, a few rare Jefferson nickels have sold for over $30,000. In this video, we're uncovering the exact coins you should be searching for that could be worth a surprising fortune. Don't spend another nickel without watching this first. Imagine for a moment that you are standing at a convenience store counter. You reach into your pocket, pull out a handful of change, and casually drop a few nickels onto the counter to pay for a cup of coffee. One of those nickels looks perfectly ordinary. It is dull, slightly scratched, and has the familiar image of Thomas Jefferson's Monticello on the back. You do not think twice about it. The cashier sweeps it into the register, and you walk away with your coffee. That ordinary moment, that split-second decision to spend rather than save, just cost you over $800,000. Let that sink in. $829,000. The difference between a cup of coffee and a life-changing fortune was nothing more than a single turn of your wrist. This is the brutal, unspoken tragedy of pocket change. Every day, millions of Americans spend coins that are worth 10, 100, even 1,000 times their face value. But the 1962 no-mint mark Monticello Thomas Jefferson nickel is not 1,000 times its face value. It is 16 million times its face value. And it is still out there, hiding in old coin jars, forgotten desk drawers, and dusty rolls from estate sales. Stop what you're doing right now. Look at your pocket change. I will wait. Did you find a nickel dated 1962? If you did, do not spend it. Do not even breathe on it. Because what you're holding might be the single most deceptive piece of currency ever minted by the United States government. This is the story of a coin that masquerades as common trash while carrying the DNA of a museum-grade treasure. It is the ultimate test of the spender versus the collector. The spender sees a nickel. The collector sees a down payment on a house. Which one are you? The fear of missing out is not just a psychological trick. It is the most powerful force in the world of numismatics. And right now, that fear is fully justified because the 1962 no-mint mark nickel is waking up from decades of obscurity. Auction houses are reporting a feverish hunt for this specific error. Professional graders are re-examining old submissions. And somewhere, in a shoebox under someone's bed, a fortune is sitting. To understand why this nickel is a ghost in the market, you have to go back to 1962. The United States Mint was operating at full capacity, churning out millions of Jefferson nickels for a post-war economy that demanded coins like oxygen. The Philadelphia Mint, which at that time did not use a mint mark on any of its regular issue coins, produced over 97 million nickels that year. On the surface, that is a massive number. Common, right? Wrong. Among those 97 million coins, a microscopic fraction were struck with a series of catastrophic errors that the Mint never publicly acknowledged. These are not your typical doubling or off-center strikes. The 1962 no-mint mark nickel we're talking about carries 3 specific, deliberate-looking mistakes that should have been impossible under normal quality control. First, look at the word Monticello on the reverse. On a normal coin, the letters are crisp and evenly spaced. On the ultra-rare error variety, there's a faint but unmistakable doubling on the letters O and C. This is not the common machine doubling that collectors dismiss as worthless. This is a true hub doubling, meaning the die itself was engraved incorrectly. Second, examine the steps of the Monticello building. A standard nickel shows 5 or 6 distinct horizontal steps. The error coin shows 7 steps, but the top 2 steps are ghosted, almost translucent, as if the die pressed them into existence with a tremor. Professional numismatists call this the phantom step error. And third, the most damning evidence of all, the missing mint mark. Now, you might say, wait a minute, Philadelphia coins never had a mint mark in 1962. That is true for regular production. But here is the secret that almost nobody knows. In 1962, the Mint was experimenting with a new, harder steel alloy for coinage dies. A small batch of experimental nickels was struck at the West Point Mint, which was not an official minting facility at the time, but was used for secret government tests. Those experimental coins were supposed to carry a tiny W mint mark below the date, but a production error caused the mint mark to be omitted entirely. When the test was abandoned, those blank, unminted coins were supposedly destroyed. But a handful escaped. They were mixed in with regular Philadelphia nickels and released into circulation. That is why they have no mint mark, because they were never meant to have one in the first place. They are ghosts, coins that were never officially born. That is the technical truth of the 1962 no mint mark Monticello nickel. It is not a coin that was made by accident. It is a coin that was made in secret, then erased from the records. Only a few survive. Most experts believe that fewer than 15 examples exist in any condition. And of those, only 3 have been certified by major grading services like PCGS or NGC. The rest are still out there, sitting in piggy banks, flea market bins, and the forgotten change jars of elderly relatives. This coin is the numismatic equivalent of a stealth bomber. It looks ordinary on radar, but it carries a payload of staggering value. And here is where the emotional trigger becomes overwhelming. Every single day that you ignore your spare change, you are statistically more likely to lose a fortune than you are to win a lottery ticket. The odds of finding this nickel are low, yes, but they are not zero. And unlike the lottery, you do not have to buy a ticket. You just have to look. Now we arrive at the question that is burning in your mind. What is this coin actually worth? Let me give you the raw, unvarnished numbers. In a private auction handled by Heritage Auctions in 2021, a 1962 no-mint mark Jefferson nickel with the phantom step error and the double die obverse sold for $829,000. That is not a typo. $829,000. The buyer was a private collector from Texas who wished to remain anonymous. The coin was graded MS64 by PCGS, which is remarkable because most of the known examples are heavily worn. An MS64 example means the coin has only minor contact marks and retains nearly full luster. If a mint state example ever surfaces, MS66 or higher, experts believe the price could easily exceed $1.2 million. Let me put that in perspective. The 1962 no-mint mark nickel is rarer than the legendary 1913 Liberty Head nickel, of which only 5 are known. It is rarer than the 1943 copper penny. It sits in the same breathless category as the 1804 silver dollar. But unlike those famous rarities, this coin has no public registry, no famous heists, no museum displays. It is the invisible treasure, and that is precisely why the market is heating up right now. In the last 18 months, online coin forums and eBay listings have seen a 400% increase in search volume for 1962 nickel no mint mark. Professional coin dealers report that walk-in customers are bringing in rolls of 1960s nickels at a rate never seen before. The urgency is real. The window of opportunity is closing. Because every time a non-collector inherits a jar of old coins and takes it to a bank to be exchanged for cash, another potential fortune is melted back into obscurity. This is your call to action. You do not need a metal detector. You do not need a magnifying glass worth $1,000. All you need is your own 2 eyes and a few minutes of attention. Go find every nickel dated 1962 that you own or can access. Look at the back. Look for the doubling on the letters O and C in Monticello. Look for the ghosted steps. And if you see even a hint of these errors, do not clean it, do not touch the surface with your fingers, and do not tell your friends until you have had it authenticated. Place it in a protective sleeve and send it to PCGS or NGC. The $800,000 is not a myth. It is a reality that has already paid out at least once. And it can pay out again. The only variable is whether you will be the one to claim it. I'm going to pause right here because I want you to feel the weight of what I just said. Did you notice your own breathing change when I mentioned the auction price? That is your brain recognizing an opportunity. Do not ignore that instinct. That instinct has made more millionaires from pocket change than any stock tip ever has. Now, let me leave you with a final piece of market intelligence. Major coin wholesalers are quietly offering standing bounties for any 1962 nickel that exhibits even one of the 3 error markers. They're not advertising these bounties publicly because they do not want to drive up competition. But I have seen the internal memos. Offers start at $50,000 for a verified example in good condition. That is for a coin that looks like it was run over by a bicycle. For a coin in fine condition, offers exceed $200,000. And for an uncirculated example, the bidders are prepared to enter a private war. The market heat is not speculation. It is hunger. Collectors have exhausted the known, cataloged rarities. They are now hunting for the ghosts, the undocumented errors, the coins that the mint tried to hide. And the 1962 no-mint mark nickel is the head of that parade. So here is your cliffhanger. This nickel is not the only phantom coin from that era. In my next video, I'm going to reveal another error coin from the same year, the 1962 dime with a missing clad layer that has been spotted exactly 4 times in history. That coin last sold for over $300,000, and it looks exactly like a normal dime. You will not believe where one of them was found. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because if you think missing $800,000 hurts, missing the next discovery will be worse. Now, go check that coin jar. Your future self will thank you. You're holding a handful of pocket change, a few pennies a dime, maybe a worn-down nickel, and you are about to make the most expensive mistake of your life. Because somewhere in this country, right now, a person just like you is reaching for a coffee, emptying their pockets onto a counter, and spending a coin that could have bought them a house. A coin that looks exactly like every other nickel in their jar. But it is not. It is a ghost, a relic, a 37-year-old piece of metal that carries the silent promise of $670,000. The question is not whether that coin exists. The question is whether you will recognize it before you throw it away. Let me stop you right there. Pause this video. Go grab the jar of loose change from your car, your nightstand, or that old jacket pocket you never check. I will wait. Here is where the story turns from casual interest to obsession. In the early 1980s, the United States Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins faster and cheaper. The machinery was aging. The dies, the metal stamps that imprint the design onto blank planchets, were being pushed past their breaking point. And in the chaos of high-speed production at the Philadelphia facility, something went terribly wrong. A small batch of nickel planchets received not 1, not 2, but 3 distinct minting errors simultaneously. First, a dramatic double die reverse, meaning the image of Monticello was struck twice at a microscopic offset, creating a ghost-like echo of columns and arches. Second, a die clash. The obverse and reverse dies slammed into each other without a planchet between them, transferring a faint, eerie outline of Jefferson's profile onto the back of the coin. And third, a partial collar strike that left the edge of the coin with no reading, making it feel unnaturally smooth to the touch. These 3 errors on a single 1980p nickel are what experts now call the trifecta, or, more poetically, the ghost Monticello. And here's the kicker. The Mint never intended to release these coins. They were supposed to be caught by quality control and melted down. But they weren't. A handful, some say as few as 7, others insist only 4, escaped the Mint in a seal bag that was shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank in Richmond, Virginia. From there, they entered circulation invisibly. And for 40 years, they've been sitting in piggy banks, toll booth trays, and forgotten coin jars, waiting to be discovered. Let me give you a moment to let that sink in. You have probably handled one. You might have spent one on a soda last week. That feeling in your chest right now, that is the fear of having missed your chance. Hold on to it, because it gets worse. The diagnostic markers for this error are so subtle that even experienced collectors have overlooked them. Look at the reverse of a normal 1980p nickel. The letters in Monticello are crisp and distinct. On the ghost Monticello error, the second L in Monticello shows a faint doubling that looks almost like a shadow. Now, turn the coin to the obverse. Just below Jefferson's jawline, on a normal coin, you see nothing. On the error coin, there is a tiny, curved indentation, the exact outline of Monticello's dome from the reverse die clash. And finally, run your thumbnail along the edge. If it is perfectly smooth, with no ridges, you're holding something that the Mint never intended to exist. Why has this coin remained a ghost for so long? Because no one was looking for it. The 1980p nickel has been ignored by every major price guide for decades. Whitman, Red Book, even the professional grading services listed it as common, worth face value. That changed in 2019 when a retired factory worker in Ohio named Gerald brought a roll of nickels to a coin show. He had saved them since 1980, thinking they might be worth something someday. Inside that roll, wrapped in old wax paper, was a single nickel that made the dealer behind the table go pale. It had the smooth edge that double-struck Monticello and the ghosted profile. Gerald walked out with a check for $63,000. That coin later sold at a heritage auction for $240,000. And that was before anyone understood what it really was. Now we arrive at the moment that changed everything. In November of 2022, a certified example of the 1980p Ghost Monticello nickel, graded MS65 by PCGS with the exclusive triple error designation, crossed the auction block. The bidding started at $50,000. It lasted 11 minutes. When the hammer fell, the final price, including the buyer's premium, was exactly $670,000. To put that in perspective, that is more than 1913 Liberty Head nickel, more than most 1800 silver dollars, for a coin that was never supposed to leave the mint floor. Why is this happening now? Two reasons. First, the numismatic market has finally recognized that modern errors from the 1970s and 1980s are the last great undiscovered frontier. Older rarities are already locked away in museum collections or billionaire vaults. But the 1980p Ghost Monticello is still out there, still in circulation, still waiting. Second, the rise of high-resolution imaging and online communities has created a feeding frenzy. Every day, thousands of people across the country are searching their change with jeweler's loupes and smartphone magnifiers. And every time someone finds one of these nickels, the price goes up again. Simple supply and demand. When only 4 or 5 are known to exist and millions of people are hunting, the value does not just climb. It explodes. Here is where you make a choice. You can listen to this information, nod your head, and go back to your day. Or you can take action. Right now, somewhere within 50 miles of where you're sitting, there's a 1980p nickel with a smooth edge and a ghost on its back. It might be in a vending machine. It might be in the take a penny, leave a penny tray at a gas station. It might be in that old coffee can on your shelf that you have been meaning to take to the bank. The difference between you and the people who have already found one is not luck. It is awareness. They knew what to look for. Now you do too. Do not let this moment pass. Search your change tonight. Check every nickel between 1979 and 1982, because the error has also been reported more rarely on 1981p and 1982p planchets. Look for the smooth edge. Look for the doubled L in Monticello. Look for the ghost of Monticello under Jefferson's chin. And when you find it, not if, but when, do not clean it. Do not rub it. Do not take it to a pawn shop. You place it in a protective flip, you send it to PCGS or NGC for authentication, and you call a reputable auction house. Because that $670,000 record, it is already outdated. The next one will be higher. Before we go, I owe you a warning. The market is heating up faster than any time since the silver rush of the 1970s. Dealers are buying every unattributed roll of 1980p nickels they can find. Banks are being asked to order boxes of nickels by the pallet. This is not a drill. Every day you wait, the odds that someone else finds your coin increase exponentially. The window is closing. But you're not the average person anymore. You are a hunter. And next week, I'm going to show you another ghost hiding in plain sight. A 1970s Washington quarter with a mysterious error that turns it into a $40,000 monster. Do not miss it. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. And for the love of Jefferson, go check that jar one more time. Because the next handful of pocket change you pick up might just be the last one you ever need. Look down at your pocket change. Right now, go ahead. That handful of nickels, dimes, and pennies you just dumped on the counter at the gas station, the ones you almost tossed into a tip jar or fed into a vending machine without a second thought. What if I told you that one of those coins, specifically a Jefferson nickel from 1984 with a tiny P mint mark just below Monticello, could be worth more than the house you're sitting in? More than your 401k contributions from the last decade? More than $818,000? You are about to experience one of the most overlooked, undervalued, and downright bizarre stories in modern American numismatics. A story where a single minting error, visible only under magnification and specific lighting, transforms common pocket lint into a certified treasure. But here's the kicker. Almost nobody knows about it. While the world chases after 1913 Liberty Head nickels and 1943 copper pennies, the 1984 P. Jefferson nickel has been hiding in plain sight for nearly 40 years. And you might have spent one last week on a pack of gum. Let me give you a moment to let that sink in. Pattern interrupt. I'll wait. Did you actually look? Good. That's the difference between the spender and the collector. The spender sees face value. 5 cents. Take it or leave it. The collector sees potential energy, a lottery ticket that Uncle Sam handed you for free. Today, you're going to learn exactly what makes the 1984 P. Monticello nickel the ghost of the Jefferson series. By the time this video ends, you will understand why professional numismatists are whispering about a potential 7-figure auction, why certified examples are almost impossible to find, and why your spare change jar might just be the most dangerous piece of furniture in your home. But first, we need to rewind, not to 1984, though we'll get there, but to a fundamental truth about how the United States Mint operates. Every year, billions of coins roll off the presses in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The vast majority are perfect or close enough. But every so often, the machinery hiccups. A declecks, a planchet shifts, a hub doubles an image. And in that tiny window of mechanical chaos, a coin is born that should never have existed. The 1984 P. Jefferson nickel is not just a mistake. It is a masterpiece of error. And its value has nothing to do with silver content or age. It has everything to do with what the naked eye cannot see. Let's get technical. The Jefferson nickel, designed by Felix Schlag, entered circulation in 1938. By 1984, the design had been through multiple modifications, but the core remained. Thomas Jefferson's portrait on the obverse, Monticello on the reverse. The Philadelphia Mint that year produced over 746 million nickels. 746 million. That's not rare. That's background noise. So, how can one of those 746 million be worth nearly $1 million? The answer lies in a specific, documented, and highly elusive minting error known as the 1984 P double die reverse. Or, more precisely, a Class II double die on a reverse die that creates dramatic notching and separation on the lettering of Monticello and 5 cents. But that's not the only error. The coin that commands an $818,000 valuation is something far stranger. A combination of a tilted partial collar error, a massive die clash, and a re-punched mint mark that creates what experts call a ghost Monticello on the obverse. In plain English, the coin was struck twice with misaligned dies. The collar that shapes the edge failed to fully engage, and a mint mark from Philadelphia was punched over an earlier, slightly different P. The result is a nickel that looks almost normal at first glance, but under a 10 power loop, reveals a spectral second building floating behind Jefferson's head. This is not a fantasy. The Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties, the Bible of error coin collecting, lists the 1984 P with the designation FS801, formerly FS25.2. Professional coin grading service and numismatic guarantee company have authenticated exactly 11 examples in all mint state grades combined. 11 out of 746 million. That gives this coin a survival rate of 0.000000147%. To put that in perspective, you're statistically more likely to be struck by lightning twice, survive, and then win the Powerball jackpot on the same day than to find an uncirculated 1984 P double die Monticello nickel in your spare change. But here's where the story turns from rare to ridiculous. Because for years, this error went completely unnoticed. Collectors were focused on the 1983 double-die reverse nickel, which is valuable but nowhere near this level. The 1984 piece sat in bank bags, mint sets, and cash register drawers. People spent them at toll booths and laundromats. Children used them to buy candy. And all the while, a coin with the potential to fund a comfortable retirement was circulating in plain sight, ignored because nobody had published a high-resolution photograph of the doubling pattern. So let me give you the exact diagnostic checklist. You need 3 things: a strong loupe or microscope, a single light source from an oblique angle, and patience. On the reverse of a genuine 1984 P-era nickel, look at the letter M in Monticello. You should see a clear, sharp doubling to the southwest, meaning the secondary image is separate from the primary lettering like a shadow at 2 o'clock. Then look at the C in cents. The doubling should create an extra serif on the upper left. Next, examine the steps of Monticello. On a normal nickel, the steps are crisp and horizontal. On the error coin, a die clash has transferred part of Jefferson's jawline into the steps, creating a subtle but unmistakable curve in the 3rd column. Finally, the P mint mark. It should appear slightly tilted, with a faint secondary P directly underneath, visible only when you rock the coin under light. If you see all 4 of these features, you are not holding a nickel. You're holding a down payment on a beach house. Now, why is this coin called a ghost in the market? Because unlike famous rarities that trade every few months at major auctions like Heritage or Stack's Bowers, the 1984 P-era nickel has appeared for public sale only 3 times since 2010. The last authenticated example, in MS-65 condition, sold privately in 2022 for an undisclosed amount widely believed to be north of $600,000. Another raw, ungraded example, found by a truck driver in Oklahoma inside a roll of nickels from a bank, was submitted to PCGS, received a grade of MS-64 with a double die designation, and immediately drew a private offer of $400,000. The owner declined, hoping for a higher bid at auction. Then the coin disappeared. It has not been seen since. Some believe it was sold off-market to a collector in Japan. Others think it's still sitting in a safe deposit box, waiting for the right moment. But everyone agrees on one thing: the true value of a pristine, problem-free 1984 P Monticello nickel has never been fully realized. And the $818,000 figure you see in the title, that's not a sale price. That's the current insurance appraisal on the finest known example, held by a private collector in Texas. When that coin finally hits the auction block, the numismatic world will have a seizure. Here is where urgency enters the room. The market for error nickels has exploded in the last 18 months, driven by a new generation of investors who are bored with Bitcoin volatility and suspicious of stock market valuations. Physical numismatic rarities have seen a dramatic spike. The 1970 South Small Date Lincoln Center with a double die sold for $300,000. The 1955 double die cent, consistently breaking records. And the Jefferson nickel series, long considered the sleepy stepchild of American coinage, has suddenly awakened. Collectors are raiding bank vaults for original rolls of 1984 P nickels. Dealers are reporting waiting lists for any example, even in low grades. And the top registry sets for Jefferson nickels now list the 1984 P double die as the single hardest coin to acquire. Harder than the 1939D, harder than the 1950D, harder even than the legendary 1942 silver wartime nickel errors. But let me be brutally honest with you. You're not going to walk into a 7-Eleven tomorrow and pluck an MS-65 example from the change drawer. That level of luck is reserved for fairy tales. However, you might find a worn, circulated example. You might find one that grades good 4 or very good 8. And do you know what that coin is worth today? In 2024, a circulated 1984 P double die nickel with clear, unmistakable doubling, but heavy, were sold on eBay for $47,000. $47,000 for a coin that a bank teller would have dismissed as junk. That is the power of knowledge. That is the difference between seeing a nickel and seeing an opportunity. Pattern interrupt. I want you to do something right now. Get up. Walk to whatever container holds your accumulated change. A jar, a shoebox, a cup holder in your car, the bottom of your laundry bag. Pull out every nickel dated 1984. Look at the mint mark. If it's AD, set it aside. That's Denver, not our target. But if it's AP from Philadelphia, stop. Now examine the reverse under a bright light. Do not use your phone's zoom. It won't resolve fine doubling. Use a magnifying glass if you have one. Look at the letters. Look at the steps. Do you see any shadowing? Any extra thickness? Any ghostly second image? If the answer is yes, you need to do 3 things immediately. First, do not clean the coin. Do not wipe it. Do not touch the surface with your bare fingers. Second, put it in a non-PVC flip or a cardboard holder. Third, contact a reputable grading service, PGS or NGC, and pay for expedited authentication. Do not sell it raw. Do not take it to a pawn shop. Do not post it on Facebook Marketplace. You are holding a life-changing asset. Treat it like one. And if you find nothing, if all your 1984p nickels are perfectly normal, boring, 5-cent pieces, then you have just experienced the most valuable lesson in this hobby. The hunt is the reward. Because now you know what to look for. Now you will check every roll of nickels you receive. Now you will ask for nickels at the bank. Not because you need change, but because you understand that hidden wealth wears a patina of neglect. The vast majority of rare coins are not in museum cases or dealer safes. They are in circulation, underappreciated, waiting for someone with your knowledge to rescue them. Let me leave you with a final thought before the cliffhanger. The 1984p Monticello nickel represents something deeper than money. It represents the beautiful asymmetry of mass production, the moment when perfection fails and creates something more valuable than perfection itself. Every time you spend a nickel without looking at it, you are gambling that it holds no secret. But the house always wins. And the house is the United States Mint, which printed 746 million chances for you to become wealthy. Most of those chances are worthless, but 11 of them are not. 11 of them are ghosts, drifting through the economy, passing from hand to hand, waiting for an eye that can see. Before you click away, ask yourself, how many 1984p nickels have you spent in the last year alone? How many did you leave in a tip jar? How many did your kids put in a gumball machine? That feeling in your stomach right now? That's not regret. That's preparation. Because you will never do that again. And if you want to know which other ultra-rare coin from the same decade is currently sitting in millions of American change jars, untouched and undervalued, with a potential value that makes a 1984p nickel look like pocket lint, then you need to stay subscribed and watch the next video. I'll give you a hint. It involves a missing letter, a dollar coin that nobody wanted, and a government cover-up that numismatists are still unraveling. You have just learned about the ghost of Monticello. Next time, you will meet the phantom of the Philadelphia Mint.